upset the established order and everything becomes chaos. Because this is what happens when an unstoppable studio makes an unimaginable failure. What's up, guys, and welcome to my review of Joker Folie, Deux, or just simply Joker 2 for those of you who don't speak French or just doesn't want to mispronounce the name. I can honestly say that I wasn't really that big of a fan of the first film, although I do admit that I did enjoy it a little bit more than this one, but I wasn't really that big of a fan of that. And that's a film that at the time of its release in 2019 was the only film, comic book film, R-rated film, to make over $1 billion. It was well received both critically and financially, which never happens nowadays. It'd be like a freaking miracle if it did. But I thought it was okay. So it's no surprise that when this one veered its head toward my attention, I really wasn't in the mood. I just never felt the need to rush out right away to go see it. In fact, the matter is, I was going to skip it entirely, completely, not giving it a second thought. But once again, the movie gods pulled me back in. So in the film, you follow Arthur Fleck and the aftermath of the events of that first film to where he meets Harleen Lee Quinzel, to where they plan out their future together on the brink of Arthur's murder trial. Now, when they first started announcing this, they started advertising it as a musical, which turned me off completely because I'm not that much of a musical guy. The only musical I can stand is The Wizard of Oz, which I really don't need to explain that. I mean, really? Should I? But I don't know what it is. I'm just not a musical guy. But once again, thank you, movie gods. So they started announcing this as a musical, but then they started reneging on that by having Lady Gaga come out and say in a statement and say that it's not a musical, that the music segments of the film is just a way to drive the story. But isn't that a fancier way of saying that it is a musical? Because believe me, people, it is. But nonetheless, did this surprise me in the least? Did this triumph over that first film at all? Or was it exactly what I was expecting? Starting off with the positives, despite what I'll say later on in this review, I did think it was a very well-made film. Like the first one, I thought it was very well made. The acting was great, the set pieces, the way the backdrop looked, the way they designed Gotham and its feel, and I've always felt like these films had more of a realistic approach to the whole Gotham vibe and just the tone of these films, as if, what if something like this was to actually happen, and what if a Joker character actually existed, which I'm not surprised if one of them actually does, but yeah, what if something like this actually does exist? That's how these films, and this one in particular, felt to me. And in a way, I did appreciate that. Just the whole fact that there's no way that the new DCU that's getting ready to start in the next year or so can ever be tied to these. These are just so separate that it's in its own little corner, like the one that your mom and dad tell you to go to if you get in trouble. Again, I always did appreciate that aspect. I thought that Brendan Gleeson, who plays one of the security guards at Arkham Asylum, the one who would always watch over Arthur Fleck when he was there, he plays this character to where he sends out that vibe that he's going to be there for you. But if you cross him, it takes a really dark turn. He pulls a 180 on you, and he could either be your best friend or your worst enemy. And I thought he did a really good job. I thought he pulled that off pretty well. He could be nice to you, but he could also be a jackass. And again, I thought he pulled that off pretty well. And the musical segments by Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga was pretty good. Now, despite what I said about me not liking musicals, I stand by that 100%. I'm only basing this on their talent as singers, as if I was to go out and buy a vinyl or digital or CD of the Joker album. I think the musical aspects of this was done quite well because Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix held nothing back, and it really showcased their talents as singers, especially in the case of Joaquin Phoenix, which the only other song that I've heard of him was the remake of Ring of Fire from Johnny Cash in that Walk the Line film that he was in, that Joaquin Phoenix was in years ago. I actually really did enjoy that, and here I thought he did a really good job. It just showcased his talent as a musical artist. He's one of those that more shows up to me as an actor than a singer, but when he does sing, it's actually pretty good, and I thought this film showcased that pretty well. And of course, Lady Gaga, that goes without saying, she's always been a singer, but they both did a really good job, and I praise their talents as singers. The only message worth mentioning, and I'll get into the reasons why this is the only one worth mentioning later on, but I like the whole being yourself message from Lee. Even though it comes from a dark, twisted, and sick place, I like that aspect of how no matter how sick and twisted it is, you should always be yourself. Never pretend to be anything else that you're not. And I actually did appreciate that message in this film. Moving on to my mixed, Joaquin Phoenix, as much as I enjoyed him as Arthur Fleck, aka the Joker, he was good. He brought out the same vibe that I remember seeing of him in that first film. But what didn't work, though, in this particular entry, in Joker 2, was because of the direction that they went. And it just wasn't as strong. It just wasn't captivating enough. It just wasn't enough there to keep me invested. I mean, despite a couple of scenes in the courtroom and a couple of Joker classic moments, I just didn't think it was strong enough, which unfortunately brings me to the negatives. I really don't know who this film was for. What made that first film stand out the most as far as messages goes was the fact that how society treats others differently and how society acts towards the mentally ill and how others judge others for being different and how the system fails some people in terms of society and how a lot of people are let down on the most chaotic level by the system and just sometimes creates monsters of their own. That's really what I got out of that first film, and those messages was done beautifully in that one. There's nothing new here. Here it basically feels like a wash, rinse, and repeat of the same thing, only adding in a musical aspect to it. It's basically just a rehash of what's already happened, of what's been already said, to where it's just fan service, and that's it. In order for you to have a good story and a good plot line, and in order for you to actually enjoy it, you have to top what you've already done. And to me, the first Joker film should have been on one and done. They landed everything beautifully and perfectly in that. Even though I wasn't a fan of it, I still enjoyed it a lot more than I did this one. Especially after seeing this one, I did enjoy it a lot more than this one. Because with all of the messages and everything that landed stuck. And it really should have been a one and done. They really shouldn't have moved on with the sequel. It was just a way of them saying, just because the first one made $1 billion, we need to make a second one. We need to cash out on that. And that's what it felt like, a cash grab. There's nothing new, there's nothing exciting, there's no merits for this to even exist. And it's sad, really. It's really sad. Because there was really nothing to enjoy here, because I have no clue of what they were trying to do, what they were trying to make, and what point they were trying to come across here. It's basically just a prison slash courtroom slash musical of a wash, rinse, and repeat scenario. Even though I admit about Phoenix and Gaga's performance as singers, making this a musical just added on to that frustration. And it really got me thinking, why was this even made? You know, if there's not going to be anything new to be added, if you're not going to put anything extra or anything that's not already been said in that first film, why was this made? Oh yeah, that's right, because the first one made $1 billion and we just have to capitalize on that. There wasn't really no reason for you to believe that anybody was even actually trying at making anything interesting out of this. So there's no reason for this to exist at all. To the point to where as soon as I'm done with this video, I'm done. I'm never looking back. I'm probably working on something else by the time you get to this segment, if you made it this far. To where I'm just gonna move on and never look back. If you're one of the very few from what I read online, that actually enjoyed this, that's awesome. In fact, I envy you. I wish I had the same experience, but I didn't. That's not just because I didn't enjoy that first film, because I enjoyed that first film a little bit more than this one, that's for damn sure. But I just didn't have that same experience in this. And if you enjoyed it more than me, then Awesome. I give you a hand. I just wish I had the same experience. So if you're going into this expecting anything new or expecting the same impact that that first film had, don't hold your breath. You may just want to skip it entirely. So Joker, Folie, Deux, what was your thoughts on this? Have you seen it yet? Were you a fan of this one? Maybe you were one of the lucky ones. Maybe you enjoyed this exceedingly better than I did. I'll go as far as to say that you may have enjoyed this one more than the first one. Or like me, were you one of those who were just so flabbergasted on how unoriginal this was that you just can't wrap your head around why this movie exists in the first place, especially with its theme and its tone? Leave me your comment down below and give me your thoughts. Thank you so much, guys, for clicking here and watching this. I really do appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. Make sure to click that bell icon so you don't miss a thing. Now I'll see you on the next one. Peace.